We're at 110,000 members, I believe, currently.
Huge.
Shoot, it's doubled in the past like 6 or 8 months. It's been kind of wild.
Today we're speaking with Robert Kaliati, President and COO of Hammer Media, the company behind Caleb Hammer. You've probably seen Caleb on a variety of formats, but his most popular one is Financial Audit, where he gives people budgeting advice.
Robert is the operator, not the on-camera talent. He's the one who has to plan for all the ups and downs. We're here to get his take on protecting a business built on one person's name. Robert, welcome to Creator Generation.
Thanks. Pleasure to be on with you guys.
Super. Hey, to just give a bit of context, the Caleb Hammer channel, can you just briefly describe it, the format, and like the evolution over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so Financial Audit is really a tough love personal finance channel. Caleb came from a background of poor personal finances himself, and he created a channel that's really the tough love approach on personal finances that, he really wanted. So as a result, Financial Audit is a real combination of people understanding and learning how to budget and improve their finances, but in Caleb's own rambunctious style that everyone loves. So there's entertainment in it, there's finances, there's learning, and in my opinion, it's the best of both worlds.
Nice. It's basically like teardowns of people's personal finances, right? Like one-on-one teardown. Like,
yeah.
it's addictive watching, as well as like it's entertaining and educational.
One thing that is interesting, you mentioned, how did you guys meet? How did you and Caleb meet?
Yeah, Caleb and I have actually known each other since like middle school. So we used to play like music together, and then we went to college. Eventually I moved into Austin for this sales job. And, I was like, hey, Caleb, like he was talking about moving to Austin to do his music thing. And I was like, hey, how about you like do sales instead? And so he came down in like a couple of weeks. And then we started doing sales together. Eventually I moved into like product marketing, and Caleb moved into product management. He left, started the channel. Channel started taking off after a year. And then we just, stayed in touch. And I was like, hey, I was looking to leave, and I wanted to, do what I was doing, but on my own. I was going to start with Caleb, and I was going to move on to other creators. But eventually, like, the snowball started rolling, and we started having fun, and here we are.
You were too successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that story. Like the channel, the business has grown really fast. Like I think it's fair to say, like in the last few years, like quite a huge media company, or quite a big viewership and amazing story. But like with that meteoric rise has come a little bit to controversy, which we don't need to go into, but you're the president and the COO.
Yeah.
When these sorts of things go public, what does that look like inside?
So, like on my end specifically, obviously there's the content and, what Caleb's going to do. But really on my end, if I'm actually doing the right thing, I'm walking in the next day and just living my life as normal, right? And so what I've come to learn, honestly, just being on YouTube for however long we've been on, and Caleb just being an honest person and him being committed to that on the channel, is that you're always going to have about 10% of people that really don't like you that much, right, or are detracted from the channel. There's like that middle 80% where there's people in there that don't like you, but not enough to really care about you and what's going on outside. There's the middle guys who really don't care about you at all. And then there's the people that like you, but not enough to change their lives for it. And then there's like the 10% where you could like, I don't know, denounce the Pope or whatever religious figure they believe in, and they'll still follow you. And so often these controversies, I think, are just the bottom 10% of people that you're not winning over anyways. And generally the best thing to do is nothing, at least on my end, and it has very little effect on the business. Now where I do like most of my work is not during the controversy or as the controversy is coming up, but honestly I've learned to do it beforehand. The biggest risks are probably the brands, they're your business partners, they're your employees, they're people you work with closely. And the reality is you need to have those conversations ahead of time, or at least I have those conversations ahead of time, and make sure that everybody that I'm working with understands who I'm about, understands what Caleb was about, what financial audit is about, what we're really about, so that, a small group of people taking things out of context, or Caleb saying and speaking his mind, which is what is good for the show, doesn't, detract from, their opinions of us, right? I think if you're in a position where a controversy comes out, granted, you're not hiding anything from the audience, and, no like bombshell discovery was made or whatever. You shouldn't be in a position where the people around you are surprised as to what you said. They should understand who you are, and they should be able to understand the nuance. Because that's one thing I think the internet has lost lately, is the ability to have that nuanced conversation. And so, you have to train your audience and the people around you that, hey, this is a nuanced show. As my audience, I'm a nuanced person, and I'm not going to mince my words for, just PC-ness. And that has helped a lot in those controversial situations.
Yeah, yeah. Life is definitely not black and white. It's grey and nuanced. And then, yeah, you're right. It's we've lost that, particularly on the internet. I love how you've said this is all mitigated up front, right? I think that's it. It before anything happens, you mitigate it in those conversations. How much of that mitigation or that planning sits on your shoulders, or it's across everything that's done within the company and the content, etc.? How is that across the business?
Yeah, a lot of it sits on the shoulders of myself and Caleb. So how Caleb and I split responsibilities is, I'm very much responsible for our partnerships, very much responsible for our relationships on the business end. And Caleb is very much responsible for our audience. And so, and the content that goes out as well, obviously. And so when it comes to that mitigation, there is definitely a lot that, Caleb has to do himself. It all starts with the content, who he is and who he is as a person, and being an honest and straightforward person, right? He's got to have that honest communication with the audience. He's got to be upfront about who he is, and so that they build that trust ahead of time. So that's one side of it. And so then when the controversy comes out, the audience is obviously in a point where they know who Caleb is, and they're not, jarred by things that are a little bit more nuanced. On my end, I'm responsible for talking to our partners and maintaining those relationships. I want to make sure that anybody we work with first, understands who we are and what we stand for and what we do. If you're doing a brand deal with us, or you want to come on as an agency partner, or you want to start a business with us, or you even want to just work here at the company, so also we're employees, you have to understand what that comes with. That comes with the show, Financial Audit, our other shows, and our online presence. And so I'm making sure that everybody understands the mission and the vision, where we want to go, where things may get, misconstrued, and making sure that, the relationship that we have with the people around us is very much a personal relationship. So at the end of the day, it's you have your friends and the people close to you, and they know things about you that, maybe the rest of the world doesn't know. And as a result, they're able to, maybe put up with a little bit more. And so, I want to treat those partners around me as those friends, as those people that I can talk to, that I want them to know me in a way that is, and the company in a way that's really strong.
You run I guess, you're part of that next generation of interview talk shows that are so popular now because of the connection between who you're talking to, right? So Caleb talking to the interviewee, obviously with a level of connection and depth that is probably not seen previously. What's it like trying to effectively be at the forefront of these new formats, develop these new formats with, new controversies, new business partnerships, all these things in the background?
I mean, it's a lot of just figuring things out as we go. Being at the forefront of the show, for example, it's hard to know, and it was hard to tell like where the show was going to go. And so a lot of what we did was focus on innovation and collaboration and just throwing out ideas and just looking at the numbers, right? So, you would think that the show has just been like a straight up rocket ship and there's been no ups and downs or there's been no hiccups. But the reality is when there are hiccups, we sit down in a room together and, from the very beginning, it's been 12 less, however many people need to be in the room, working together to decide, what the next direction is. And, we're throwing out around 100 ideas, 99 of them are terrible. And the one that works is the one that we go with. Then on the other end of it is figuring out, okay, we're growing this podcast. We have a captive audience. There's a lot of like business opportunity and there's a lot of opportunity around us. How do we find it? How do we navigate it? I think first of all, it's 100% about finding the right people and getting help when we need to. We got really lucky in the early stages of our business. We found people like, our legal team, and we were able to connect with other agencies and able to connect with other people in the industry that, could really help us navigate. The hard part is nobody could tell us exactly what to do because not many people are building a business exactly like we are, which is very like product led, a lot of different products, a lot of subscription businesses, a lot of subscription models. I don't know if any other creator with a budgeting app, but they were able to help us say, okay, here is what you need to avoid. Here's some of the guardrails you need to put for yourself. Here's how you need to be able to think about these different opportunities and different ways to go. And eventually, like we stumbled upon, a business that I think works for us and works for our audience. There were definitely issues along the way. And I think a lot of it was like trial and error. And one thing that, Caleb especially, I think has been incredibly good at is speed of market. It's how quickly can we get things out there and we test it. And if it doesn't work, we put it down. If it works, then we're asking ourselves constantly how we can make it better. One of our flagship shows are our memberships, Hammer Elite, right? We want to start a YouTube subscription service. It started on Patreon actually, and the Patreon kind of flopped a little bit. And at that point, we were on the verge of honestly just taking it down, right? We tried it, it didn't work. But eventually we put it on YouTube. And I think what we realized from there was there's a little bit less friction when you have a membership on YouTube. And that allowed it to, take off, right? So we didn't believe in it, but it was a trial and error process that helped us, eventually find our footing. And then we just started doubling down. We started making better content, more content. Now that we had people in the membership, we started asking our audience. And that's really been how we approached all of our business lines going forward.
Do you think people oversimplify the show and what it is? Because, if you watch it, you think, oh, Caleb's interviewing someone talking about these issues, and they go to the next one, they're talking about, the issues, doing financial audits, and they think, oh, it's a very straightforward linear trajectory between where he started to where he is now. But there's obviously a lot of layers in the background, isn't there?
Yeah, totally. At the base, obviously, it's a finance show. And, Caleb is talking about personal finances of people, right? Hey, like you need to be better with your money. You need to budget more. You need to get out of debt. You need to, stop spending money on DoorDash, whatever it is. But I think what really resonates with people is not just the finances, but the stories. And that's one of the more intricate parts of the show is matching the finances with those really, really awesome stories. And we put a lot of work into that. So we get, hundreds of applications a week, thousands a month. And we have an individual producer that like sorts through all those applications and figures out, okay, here are some people who seem a bit interesting, who have a good financial situation for the show. And then from there, they get on the phone with them and just really figure out, okay, is this person legit? Is their finances real? Are they, an actual real person? And then we have even longer conversations with these people after that with our show producers, where we're really taking the time to dive in to their stories, to who they are, and really just figuring out how in the show we can, you know, present that to Caleb and get that information out there in a great way. And so a lot of nuance comes, and as the show's evolved, you know, it's all about finding new topics, finding a wider range of people, and showing people's real life circumstances. Even when we make our courses, it's like what's that life circumstance that we haven't really shown to people before, and how do we get that on camera and relate to more people in that sense.
When I first came across Caleb, it was really interesting because it was in short form content, and it's, I think, pretty hard sometimes to make an impact in short form because people watch so much of it, right? And I remember seeing the format and the way he was talking about finances, and I'm like, oh, that was really interesting. I just remember thinking that story, that little segment of the story just seemed really interesting because it was the person's background, but then that next layer of depth is like, this is how my finances work, and then Caleb coming up with a solution, and there's like a whole setup and ending in one hit, and it felt really, really well structured.
Yeah, it's all about figuring out what the audience will resonate with, and I think it's not necessarily like scripted or anything, but after Caleb has done it for years and years, I think one thing we found out is how to get that story and get that finance in and find that little piece of magic in those clips.
I won't harp onto it too much, but you guys are basically running a full casting process, right? Like you are casting real people, and like it's a in-depth casting process. I assume you get people try and slip past who aren't genuine all the time. Has anyone gotten through? Has anyone gotten through that filter? And you've like sat them down in front of Caleb and was like, oh, this is they're just pretending. This is an act.
Yeah, it honestly, that's part of the reason why the casting process now is so extensive. But in the past, there used to be situations all the time where somebody would sit in the seat, you'd have that conversation, and you'd be like, you know what, this isn't real. And you can feel it very tangibly in the room. And then it's like, all right, we can't post this, or like this person, I guess this is over. And it's like an awkward situation. But, and it's such a waste of time too. It's a waste of their time. It's a waste of our time. We spend resources and time talking to these people that we're like, we got to make sure now that before they fly out to Austin, we know that they are a real, genuine person, and like that they can talk on camera and have a conversation. Cause I mean, it's a podcast at the end of the day. We don't have the luxury of working with, people that are camera trained or people that are used to being on camera. And so that's another part of the job is, can you actually get on camera and talk to Caleb and explain your situation and have him help you?
Yeah, there's so much going under the hood to get there. It's like, I love sort of unearthing that. It's really great. I want to backtrack a little bit because you're talking a lot about this experimentation, this test and learn and fail and innovation, and how you continue to do that across everything, not just the content, the products, etc. Is there an underlying thesis or underlying framework or anything that enables you guys to do that across the business? Like, how do you continually experiment and test in public confidently?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's really built into us and our culture. And I think honestly the answer may be that we just put a lot of work into it. So like when I think about the show, for example, testing on a show that big is very risky, because at the end of the day, you don't want to put out an episode and it just flops or it's a 10 out of 10, right? You want to make sure that if you're testing, you're not really ruining the format. So what we do is, we in the background, again, we're always talking and throwing out ideas, and we're always poking holes in all the different ideas that we can put out there. So if we're trying to make a change to the show, right? For example, if it's a thumbnail change or a title change or a format change, that's a multi-hours long conversation. And eventually we settle on something that we want to put out, and it'll be like a micro adjustment, right? We see how that performs. If that performs well, we do more of it. Then, we we keep going and do like these micro adjustments over and over and over again. And we're just putting a lot of effort into it so that we can make those micro adjustments on the show very, very rapidly. When it comes to other entities like, our membership or dollar wise, everything is an innovation. Everything is a test. Those things aren't as risky when it comes to, putting out an episode and it kind of like flopping and then you ruin the algorithm. And so one of my frameworks or rules is that everything goes out with some sort of A/B test if possible. So we're always in our newsletters testing headlines. We're always in the sales pages and landing pages testing messaging. We're always in the app, and I'm always asking for people to, test things wherever we can. And what happens is you pick the thing that works and you just continually do that over and over again. Where this kind of started for me personally is where I used to work. It was like a stock trading company, and 2022 happened, stock market went down, stock educational things were not doing really, really well. And you couldn't really like rest on that COVID like hype anymore. And so basically, what I said in my kind of domain was, yeah, we're just going to keep testing. And over time, the product got 10 times better because we were slowly throwing out the things that weren't working and adding in things that were working until you kind of have a completely different product if you need one. So, yeah, I love testing. I love that innovative attitude. And it's something that, especially as we grow, that I really like try not to lose in the business.
What's your thoughts around failure? Like, if you like, what if something does fail, or do you have a fear of if someone has a fear of something failing?
I think that's always there, of that fear of failure. And failure for me in like the business and us, like, again, it's very public. We have a large audience, and so it hurts. But for me, I kind of like try to take that failure and I just try to eat it, and I still release anyways. And that's kind of how I've dealt with it. There was a situation, a couple of weeks ago where we have a big launch coming for DollarWise in a couple months here, and we wanted to test something. It didn't work, and now the DollarWise launch got delayed by a little bit, and that hurt really, really bad, if I'm being honest. And the reality is at the end of the day, like, if we aren't gonna test it, nothing's gonna get better. And so you just got to eat the fear and just keep doing it over and over again. But yeah, for me, like, I feel like fear is okay, and fear is like something to accept. And if you kind of go into this land of trying to grow a business, you're going to be scared of stuff, I'm not the front of the camera guy. Doing a podcast is not like always the most comfortable thing for me, but I'm going to do it anyways. So that's kind of how I think about it.
And look, it sounds like you and Caleb both run the company with, looking at the different perspectives. What happens though when there is a disagreement? I mean, it is a creator-centric business. You are running operationally things in the background. When you guys have a difference of opinions, how do you work that out?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think it's important for myself, and one of my core philosophies is Caleb is the content creator. There's a content creator business, and it isn't my job to kind of get in the way of that. It's my job to support that, because at the end of the day, like, if we didn't have the creator and we didn't have the content, then we would be like nothing, right? And so I try to trust Caleb as much as possible. But in a situation where like there is a disagreement, the best thing that I can do is, I can't speak out of like feeling. I can speak on data and information. And so if there are things that are going out there, or there are things that are happening that, I feel a way about, I'm going to say, hey, here's what the numbers look like. Here's how it's affecting the channel. Here's how it's affecting the business. And then at that point, Caleb and I can have like a constructive conversation. So I think it's really important, at least to me, to set up a situation where I can be objective. It's all about numbers. It's all about metrics, right? And I'm not talking about like just revenue. It could be just retention or ABD, or it could be, customer satisfaction or an audience survey. I'm bringing that to the table, and I'm supporting Caleb in his decision making.
Super interesting to unpack a little bit, because like most creators start making content from a position of passion, right? Like something they are personally interested in that they want to put out into the world. Does that sometimes like cause like you're having different conversation then? Caleb is coming from that position of passion. You're coming from a more grounded position. Do they clash sometimes? And how does that then reconcile once it's gone through the washing machine together?
Yeah, totally. Obviously my angle is business. Caleb's is, content creation and the passion for the content. And a lot of the times it is a clash there. But, at the end of the day, yeah, like the content is king. And so if, I can't, I don't want to ever like present a business case that clashes with Caleb's, content case, right? Or I think another way to look at it is I always try to adjust a little bit as well. And I try to make sure I understand, what Caleb wants from a content perspective. Like for example, some of the shows we create come out of his passions, right? We have Front Page. That's a show that he's passionate about. Caleb Hammer Show, a show that he's passionate about. Financial Audit, that's even a show that he's passionate about as well. And what I try to say is, okay, great. Like, maybe if we went on Netflix and, made this super generic show, I'm sure that'll do better with the numbers. But knowing that this is the direction you want to go in, how do I support that? And one of the reasons I don't like to fight that too much either is like content creation is such a rat race, right? You're constantly trying to churn out new content, and the creator can burn out pretty easily, and you've seen it happen so many times. And so one thing that I'm always asking myself is like, how do I keep Caleb from burning out? And one of those ways is by helping him make the content that he's excited about, and figuring out and doing the hard work on, okay, I'm on the business side. How do I support this? Sometimes, I mean, there's situations where it's like, dude, okay, we had goals at the beginning of the year. So we sit down and we talk about that. And I'm like, you are moving drastically, or this decision may move us drastically away from our goals. Then at that point, it's like, okay, we've already had that conversation. Now I'm at liberty to bring it back. Then we have a real conversation about, is this worth moving away from the direction that we were trying to go in the first place?
You've obviously grown very rapidly. You've evolved as a channel, evolved as a business, gotten on new partners, working with CAA, developed products, premium offerings. You mentioned that obviously burnout is still an issue. A creator needs to be creative. Do you, to some extent, have to shield Caleb from a lot of that, from a lot of the other stuff that's coming up in the background?
Yeah, and I really think that's a major part of my job. When I came on, Caleb had all these amazing ideas, right? And the problem was that he didn't have the time to get that off the ground because the content takes up so much time. It's so much work to put out all of this content, on the internet, especially when you're filming 3 to 5 times a week. And so as a result, like when you had something like partner negotiation, or you're looking at the things like the website, it's a huge distraction, and it takes away from the content. And so one of the biggest things that I think I did was come in there and just say, hey, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to do the hard work. And when we talk, I'm going to lay out all the options, super well thought out, super well built out. And so that all you have to do is really, really choose what the best path is, unless you want to get involved. And I think what that allowed Caleb to do is focus more on making the show and making it better and doing that thing that only he can do, which is be on camera with his best energy. And so, I think that shows in what happened. I joined like late 2023, and then early 2024, that's when the channel started taking off because he didn't have to worry about all that stuff. And so, yeah, I think a core part of my job is shielding him from that stuff. And it's part of why I think a lot of creators should bring on a business manager, an operator, a COO, a CEO, whatever, position you think you need, is to take off the things that you particularly don't want to do. I know some creators don't want to even make content. So maybe you're bringing on a content creator that can come in and take some of that off of your plate. But yeah, I think it's different from everybody. And it's like my job is to do the stuff that, drains him. And so that he can focus on the stuff that, only he can do and can really push the needle on that.
I love that. A lot of the advice out there is like your first hire as an editor. Like, hey, creator, your first hire as an editor, right? Like, and it's like a simple catch-all. I don't really agree with that, and you're sort of alluding to that too. It's like how can then a creator identify their need? Like you said, it could be content or someone operationally taking the thing that drains you. How do you identify that?
Yeah, I think it's really about like sitting down and just identifying, to your point, that thing that really actually annoys you, right? Like they say like hire an editor, but if you like editing, why are you gonna hire an editor? It's like, okay, I'm sitting down every day, I'm spending a lot of time on this thing, and it's making me miserable. That's probably like the first place that I would look to hire, right? And for most creators, like to the other point, it's like it is an editor. Like a lot of creators don't want to sit down for hours a day, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just dragging lines and like, ugh, this is mundane. But if you love that and that's maybe like your core skill set, then what else is there? Maybe you don't want to be like Caleb and film 5 episodes a week. So maybe at that point you're like, wow, I'm sitting down every day just filming episodes. Well, look for some other cast members now that can help take a little bit of that content load off, join you on the show you're making, or make a new show. Or, I think about like, my end on the business side, one of my first major helpers was like an HR director, right? A lot of companies our size or at that time don't really have an HR director, but I didn't want to spend all of my days sitting in interviews and hiring people. So that's where I went to first.
How big is the team?
Right now, it's about 35 people in office. We have about 20 contractors. So we hired 17 this year so far, 13 last year. So we're kind of moving.
It's a lot. And that spans, what sort of activities does that span?
So the business right now is split about half and half between content and we call it our business side. On the content side, about 15, 20 people, half of them work on financial audits solely, and the other half work on everything else. So front page, Caleb Hammer Show, our memberships, any other shows we're piloting or testing out, they're all just working on all of those shows together. On the other side, we have the business team, and most of that is split between marketing and engineers. We have 3 engineers, soon to be 6 in a couple weeks, that are working solely on the budgeting app. And then we have a team of about 6 people on the marketing side that work on everything from brand deals to we do paid ads for DollarWise. We even run ads for casting sometimes. And we, do newsletters and manage, Caleb's brand presence on our websites and all of those things. So that's really the team makeup. We've got an HR director. We've got, a security guy. And then, a bunch of contractors here and there when things get busy and we need a little bit of help.
And how many days a week are you shooting content?
Well, financial audit shoots 4 days a week. And we're shooting content all day, every day, 5 days a week. So usually financial audit shoots Tuesday through Friday in the mornings. Then in the evenings, we're shooting Caleb Hammer Show, front page, membership content. And then on Mondays, that's Caleb's kind of morning off. Maybe he's doing like a podcast, or he's recording a voiceover for front page, or he's, or we're doing membership content in the afternoon.
And at that point, does he just turn up and he's given, the background and so forth compared to the early days when he was doing all that ground up work himself?
Yeah, back in the day, Caleb would prepare all the finances himself. He would cast everybody himself, and, he would grab that sheet of finances and just like start rolling. Nowadays, yeah, all that is done for him. He comes in the filming with like limited knowledge on the guest. We kind of hand him a stack of redacted financial papers from our finance producer. Guest sits down, and then they just kind of start working through things, working through topics for about 2 hours. We keep about 95% of the content, so we cut very little, and it's just a really organic conversation.
Interesting. Well, it's obviously done well. You've got a huge membership. And look, speaking of membership, it's one of the largest, if not the largest, YouTube memberships in the world, right?
Yeah, definitely like one of the largest. So it's up there. We're at 110,000 members, I believe, currently.
Huge.
It's doubled in the past like 6 or 8 months. It's been kind of wild. So I don't know how we got here, but we're gonna keep working on it. We're gonna keep trying to grow it. So
Don't tell me that. What my next question was, what's the secret sauce?
Yeah. What's the value you create that people say, I really want to be part of this?
I mean, I think honestly, what the value is people. They want more of Caleb. They want more of us. And in the membership, we're able to really just give them that, and we're able to give them a lot of it. So, financial audit is super incredibly highly produced. It takes so long to make a singular episode. But behind the paywall, we can say, hey, let's put up a vlog. Let's put up, a fun, easier content to film, right? It's high quality, it's high production, but we can put up a lot more of that content, and we don't have to worry about titles and thumbnails and all the stuff that we're worried about on the front end. We can just put out content that people want to see. And so, how we've really evolved the show is like we started with, a lot of stuff that like we wanted to do. Like we wanted to play Mario Kart all the time, and we wanted to, just get on like live streams and like, talk crap and hang out after work. That was all fun, but eventually the membership has evolved to like ask the audience what they want. They want like more financial content. So we've put more financial audits behind the paywall. We put shows like Budget Buddies. We put shows like Hammer It Out, which is Caleb's like Dave Ramsey style talk show behind the paywall. Stuff like that is more like what the audience that watches financial audit is looking for. And as we've continued to revamp shows and add shows that people like and remove ones that don't, it's just made the membership more sticky, and people see the value prop and they continue to come back. I think the stat that I'm most proud of, honestly, when I think about memberships, is the fact that people are actually like watching the content. And so I was looking at our stats on Uscreen the other day, and it was like 80% of people that are subscribed are actually coming back week over week and watching the content from us.
Nice. That's a really good point. And then, yeah, so you've got your YouTube membership, and then you've recently worked with Uscreen to launch your own off-platform membership. Why?
Yeah.
And like, what's the difference?
So Uscreen really allows us to do and create a membership experience that's very unique to us and very unique to the content that we want to make. And so, for example, like the back end works a lot better than it does on YouTube, because all membership content, we can organize it in ways that we want to organize it. We can also speak to our customers and, get their like customer emails and, send them newsletters and have like deeper connections with the people that want to have those connections. And we can also like market in the way that we want to market, right? So, we want to make certain custom packages and offerings. It's a lot easier to do on Uscreen than it is on YouTube. And I don't think that's like a knock on YouTube at all. YouTube's a big platform, and they serve a huge community and a lot of different people and a lot of different niches really well. We serve one small niche. And so on YouTube, you're getting a product that works well for that wide variety of people that are on YouTube. And so it'll always have a place in our like product suite because it's easy to sign up on YouTube. If you're not enough of a super fan that you want to have two different logins for Caleb Hammer content, YouTube's the best place for you. But if you want the Caleb Hammer experience, you want your own dedicated app, you want to log in, be able to find the content the way that you want to find it, you want to communicate with us in a way that's super personal, and you want to, get special offers and products from us, then Uscreen is the way to go. So it's almost a way to connect with our deeper fans and our true fans and those people that, are really with us for the long haul.
Yeah, I like that distinction, right? Like it still has a fit. It's not just about like completely migrating everyone from one place to the other. And the fact that before, when you said previously like Patreon didn't work that well, but once you went to YouTube and had less friction, that then was a bit of an unlock for you. Shifting gears a little bit, like, and this is something that a lot of creators face, right? Like, is that Caleb is the face and the name of the channel and the business, right? And
Yeah.
There's a significant business behind that. There's a lot of people working for that, right? Like, but there's like a big key man risk there, right? Like, how do you navigate that? Like, what happens if something happens to Caleb?
Yeah, and I'm sure like other creators, like this is always in the back of our minds is how we deal with the key man risk side of things. And for us, we focused on subscription products and we focused a lot on like good products that if Caleb was to stop filming or whatever for a day or two, we wouldn't be in trouble. So that's kind of it at a base level, is when all you're doing is like brand deals and, most of what your revenue is coming from is like links in the description and your AdSense, then you're in trouble. But now we've kind of got two revenue streams really in the memberships and in dollar wise, where even if Caleb isn't to make a video, like we can still make revenue and we can still pay our bills. What that specifically has allowed us to do actually already is, this year we give the team 4 weeks off a year. We used to never be able to do that. So they get 1 week off every single quarter. And we know that we can still kind of rely on some of those subscription products to drive us through those dry periods. But obviously that still doesn't take away from like the entire key man idea. Like there's still like a risk where Caleb can't like drop dead and we'd be okay. And that's where like DollarWise comes in for us. And when we start to build out DollarWise, like if you look at the branding and you look at the product, there's very little of Caleb in the product itself. And we even message it a lot different than we message the show. And that's because we want to build like a product first product so that people are using it not just because they like Caleb, but because it's a good product. So success for us is, sure, our audience is going to get in. You want to utilize the audience to get them in. But when they show it to their friends or when somebody sees it via a paid ad or somebody sees it in organically, they say, hey, this is an amazing product. And as a result, I'm going to continue to use it. And, one brand that like I'm super inspired by is Sour Strips by Max Tuning. Because I feel like he did an amazing job with this, where he created that sour strip candy. And at first, it was definitely his audience buying it. But it was a good sour strip. And after a while, the audience, like regular people on the street who didn't even know like what his content was, were the ones like buying it. And so that's our goal for DollarWise. And we're putting a ton of investment in it. We have a whole full-time team that's working on the actual product every single day. And we're really doing the work to make sure that this is something that, people, it's one of the best budgeting apps on the platform, regardless of whether you know Caleb or not.
So the strategy there is build a product that transcends the individual creator's name and likeness and their audience, right? Like that's what you're trying to. That's the whole objective, essentially, with the
Yeah.
product strategy there.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like it's so tempting too to like not do that and say, "Hey, I'm going to call this Hammer Budget," or I'm going to put Caleb's name and face all over it, because, it would grow quicker that way, at least at the beginning. But you don't eliminate that key man risk, as you were talking about, in the long run, which is what we're trying to do.
And is that something then, like extrapolating that out to other creator businesses, that thinking around like name and likeness, key man risk, this time shall pass, right? This too shall pass, right? From a content perspective, then thinking about how to build something that lasts beyond the content, beyond the upload, or beyond the moment in time of influence.
Yeah, all creators, I think, should be thinking about that, because you just never know what's going to happen with the content and the algorithm, and your time on YouTube could be short, right? And so, for other creator businesses, like, honestly, one thing that like I'm hoping for, and I'm hoping to talk about a lot, is, hey, like, diversify a little bit. And, one day you may not be interested in making a video every single week for the rest of your life. It's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back and work for, another person? Probably not. But what you can rely on is, this creator product that you built, right? Obviously, you don't want to forsake the people that help you build a business, the audience themselves, right? You still want to put content out in front of the paywall, in my opinion. But you want to have something there where if that audience disappears or you don't have it there, then you can still survive as a content creator.
Love that. So for someone to be thinking like that, like what's the underlying framework or thought that they should have to sort of actually be able to do that? Like if you're talking to a creator out there, their name, their face, their likeness is the brand, is the content. How do they transform or build for something that lasts?
Yeah. And I think there's two ways to transform, and two different ways to think about this. And for us, the question is, what can I build that my audience would love, but the world would love too, right? And so constantly thinking about your niche and what in your niche does your audience really, love, right? If you're making movie content, maybe there's like, I'm not in this niche at all, but maybe there's, a certain, carrying case for your movies you can take. I guess nobody carries movies around, or, something that you can give them that's like fan content or lore, right? I would think about things like that all the time. And then I would say, okay, how do I build that thing, or find a partner or a contractor to build it? The other route is, how do I create content with people that aren't me, and find other creators that can work with you or for you, that can make content that's not on your own, right? That's not just requires your face. I think that one is a different challenge. I think that one, in order to grow it to be the size of your own brand, it takes a little bit of time, at least a year or two, where you're featured on that content creators work a lot until eventually they get to the place where they can run the show on their own and they can fly. But hope that answers the question. But that's how I think about it, at least.
That's great. Robert Kaliati, thanks for joining us. It's been a great conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, pleasure meeting you guys, and I appreciate the conversation as well.
Create a generation. Look on the mic.